Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coaching Kristy. This is Andrew BalugaWhale Simon with the lovely Kristy Arnett. Say what's up.
Hey, what's up?
Recording this video from the most unusual of circumstances. I am in a business center in a hotel in Hong Kong, getting charged like $5 a minute to be here. So we'll see how that works out. And where are you right now, Kristy?
I'm in Paris in a hotel room.
So this is the most international
Yeah.
video ever recorded. We've got like two Americans in Paris and Hong Kong trying to make this happen just to help you guys learn poker. So I hope you guys appreciate the effort. And as sort of along with this, there may be the occasional technical difficulty. We hope that you guys bear with us because we are going to some unusual lengths to produce this one. So hopefully it's good. And so now you are at this is at 50 cent $1, correct?
Yes.
So this is a new 100 no limit session, right? Not the same one as last week?
Right.
And how would you say this one went relative to the last one?
It went better. I mean, results-wise, and also I just felt much more comfortable. And at the time I recorded the session, I was feeling pretty confident. I don't know if people have gotten to read my blog, but it kind of spazzed out a little bit, like a few hours ago, actually. So, they can read that. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but yeah.
I mean, I read one like after we did our first couple sessions, but since I've been sort of in Asia, I haven't had much of a chance to spend a lot of time online. Hence the current difficulties we're experiencing. So no, I'm looking forward to reading it. Are you did you hit play on the tape, or is that still paused?
Oops. Okay, we'll go back. There you go. That's the beginning.
Because I can't tell because it's so choppy that I have no idea like where if it's playing and I just can't see it or not.
Yeah, no, it's at the beginning now. It had fast forwards.
Okay. Okay. All right. Why don't we just roll the tape and see some hands, okay?
Okay.
Just because this is gonna drive us both crazy. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we ended up seeing over the last session was a lot of people getting really aggressive pre-flop, and sort of discuss some of the ways to deal with that. Do you feel like you're becoming more comfortable both playing back more aggressively with regards to your 4-bets and also adjusting your 3-betting and how you're playing pre-flop?
Yeah, I'm a little more comfortable, but yeah, there were a lot of questions that I had, and I'm sure will come up. And one of those is...
Yep, I just lost. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Okay, sorry. Yeah, what were you saying? Like, you say you feel a little more comfortable, but...
But that there are a lot of questions that I have, and I'm sure they'll come up this session. And one of those questions is, when can I be defending in position against a 3-bet? So if I'm raising in the cutoff or on the button, and I'm getting like 3-bet by the blinds, like what kind of hands can I start defending with and playing in position? And
Sure, I'll answer that question really fast after one quick thing. On the bottom left table, we had pocket 5s, and we 3-bet in the blind versus blind spot in the big blind. And against a passive bad player, that's fine because they'll call and they'll check fold a lot. Against a aggressive player, that's also fine because we're going to 5-bet shove it.
okay.
But against an aggressive player, like we had to have some kind of dynamic to make 3-bet, 5-bet shoving 5s better than just flatting with them.
Right.
So like if I didn't have like a lot of image with somebody, I'd be more inclined to just flat that hand pre. But obviously, given how people were being super aggressive against us before, and how he could be bad because we're still playing like 100 no limit, it's actually like probably okay to take that line against an unknown. Although we get in a lot of trouble if we 3-bet and he's passive and he 4-bets and then we 5-bet. So I don't know. Maybe you'd be better served to 3-bet that with a little bit of a better read. Flatting is certainly something that we can play profitably like that against anybody.
Okay.
Anyway, to answer your question about what kinds of cards are good, and you can keep rolling the tape, by the way, and we'll stop it if we get to another spot. As for cards are good to defend with in these spots, pretty much you can't go wrong, like making big cards your like go-to.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is that if your opponent is 3-betting big cards himself, right? We're kind of like in a standstill. We're either dominating him or he's dominating us, but like we're in position, so we should come out okay from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If our opponent is 3-betting little cards, we're crushing him equity-wise, plus we have position, so we're going to come out way ahead. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if, on the other side of the coin is, if a lot of players like to call in position with like speculative things like 6-7 suited, but I feel like over the last maybe, I don't know, last year or so, it's become common knowledge that that's bad. And most players have stopped doing this. I don't know how far it's come down through the stakes if that's the case at $100 limit, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if nowadays people, at least the regulars, know not to call with those things in position. What do you think, if I might ask you, what do you think we should do with a hand like King Jack offsuit in the big blind if somebody who's raises on the button but who will not call our 3-bet with a hand like 8-7 suited? What should be our play with King Jack?
To just call.
Perfect, exactly. Because now we're going to play a hand, even out of position, we're going to play a hand with a huge equity advantage. No one ever said that calling with King Jack there wouldn't be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
But people would always say, oh, 3-betting it will be more profitable because he'll call us with all kinds of junk. As soon as he decides not to call us with junk, we shouldn't be 3-betting like hands like that for value because we can't really get value from them the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, what we want to do is this. We want to start off by playing tightly if we get 3-bet because we don't know anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
We have to assume that people will play their cards, that, essentially what someone's representing is what somebody has. And so in that event, playing tight's a good place to start. If we're going to start loosening up, it starts off by going with cards that have some highness, cards that have good equity, because once again, in 3-bet pots, you're way more likely to get to showdown than you are in other pots.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand why that is, by the way?
Because, well, not exactly, but because, well, we're not going to be like super bloating pots, I guess, if we have top pair and we're in position, and we could play a little bit more perfectly, I guess. I don't know.
I'll help you out. Yeah, that's good. The last thing you said is pretty accurate. So when we call, we're more inclined to call when we have good odds, right?
Mm-hmm.
When there's money in the pot, we can win more money than we have to put in. In a 3-bet pot, there's a ton of money in the pot, so the stacks are smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Short stackers go all in all the time for the exact same reason, which is that there's like a lot of money in the pot relative to what they have. So essentially, playing in a 3-bet pot is playing short stacked.
Okay.
Now, once you get deep, by the way, you can start calling with things like suited connectors in position, because you're deep enough that you can no longer say there's no more fold equity in 3-bet pots. Like, because if there's a lot of money behind, you can still make somebody fold.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is sort of a significant element of depth. But without depth, we might find that like if we wanted to call with a hand like 8-9 suited, we have to get the other guy to fold a lot, and the other guy probably doesn't fold nearly enough to make that happen because the pot is so huge, and it's like, I mean, it's the it's the classic idea of you're never gonna. It's almost impossible to get someone to fold any pair in a 3-bet pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they certainly will never fold any draw in a 3-bet pot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you're basically trying to get him to fold pure air, and which, by the way, if you're calling with 8-9 suited and he's 3-betting you with King Jack, you're going to have pure air more often than he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to have his hand is just better. It wins at showdown more often.
Yeah, so it's like completely
Jack 9 or something like that, and he's going to crush you. Yeah,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like the completely opposite than like the first part of what I said, is because like when you do a top pair or you are playing big cards, like you're getting to showdown more often because you have a smaller stack to pot ratio, so you're getting it in more. But It makes sense now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, this is why, like, there's this thread that has gotten shipped around a ton of times where it basically started off with another DeucesCracked guy. I think he's still DeucesCracked. Chaos Dressage, who's a really good thinker, basically making this post about why it's so good to call with King Queen in the big blinds against the button raiser, which is actually his argument is essentially what we were saying before. And so in this sense, it took me a while to understand why his argument was so good. You know, basically to say that, you know, there's all the, you know, we can keep the worst end of his range, and it's called range manipulation. We get to keep all the bad stuff in that would fold otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
The miscommunication between us was that I said, well, hey, everyone calls with bad stuff if you 3-bet, so we're much better off just 3-betting a hand like King Queen, something like that, right? And we got in this whole big thread, which you should actually check out. I think it's called 3-betting, a bad habit of range choices and 3-betting, or something like that. You can find it on all over the place. Actually, somebody will have it, be able to link it in this thread, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good read, and it basically gets down to like the crux of understanding what 3-bet bots are all about, and the real question they depend on. You should really ask yourself this before you 3-bet every single time, and when you get 3-bet as well. But it's when you're 3-betting, you say, what types of hands is he calling me with?
Okay.
You know, and then connected to that would be, what kinds of hands is he 4-betting me with? But you know, when you really think about what he's doing with his range, there's not that many options. If he has a hand like 8-9 suited, he's doing one of 3 things. There's only 3 things he can do. He can either raise, call, or fold, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can have a pretty good idea of what he's going to do with a hand like 8-9 suited before you 3-bet, you'll know exactly what hands you should 3-bet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he's going to fold, you should 3-bet 10-5 suited, right? You should 3-bet anything you have. If he's going, except for big cards, you should call. If he's going to call, you should 3-bet things like King Jack, right?
Mm-hmm.
No big deal. If he's going to 4-bet you some percentage of the time, you should 3-bet things like pocket 5s and shove them, because he's going to 4-bet and fold.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of players say, well, aren't you so, this is one in the threads before, aren't you so screwed when you 4-bet and when you 5-bet shove and he calls you? Well, it's obviously not ideal to get it in with 5s pre-flop. But when you just consider how much money somebody gives up when they put a lot of money in pre-flop and then fold, it's very, very valuable for us. Not to mention that it will also defend our ability to 3-bet him. Now we have to be really careful about not 3-betting like a hand like King 10 against this guy and 3-bet folding. You know, 3-betting King 10 or King Jack is only really good if A, he's going to call us with worse, or B, we feel comfortable shoving.
Mm-hmm.
And B is rare as all hell.
Right.
A is extremely common. So, like, the reason why we 3-bet queens here, most likely against this guy, is that we expect him to call us. You know, that's the most likely thing. Yet, you know, the nice benefit of having a hand as strong as queens is, like, if we're wrong and he's more aggressive than passive, that's fine. He's also likely to 4-bet bluff us, which we see may have happened here. So clearly, we're going to shove here, like, super happy. And we talked the other day about flatting in spots like this.
Mm-hmm.
I would only like really be psyched about flatting here if I had maybe a hand that was a little bit better equity-wise or dominating-wise than the queens.
Right.
Like I would almost even say off the top of my head, and this could be wrong, that Ace-King would be a better hand to flat here than queens, because a lot of his bluff hands are like totally dead against Ace-King. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, do a fair amount better against queens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Ace X or King X, are a lot better. You know, we're doing a lot better with Ace King and queens against those hands. And so that said, we feel fine. You know, getting it in here with queens, and like this hand is played fine. Another reason, you know, this is just one thing to keep in the back of your mind as well, which is that, you know, whenever you like someone's going to get it in pre-flop, like about their most likely hand is, or like they're more likely to have Ace King than they are aces or kings or whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people they think of fives as being so significantly different than queens, which is only true if your opponent is treating, tens like aces. And since most players don't feel comfortable doing that, you end up finding that fives, sixes, whatever, that pairs really are up against the same range. Deuces do the same as tens against jacks or better and ace king.
Right.
And so, theoretically, yeah, I mean, like slightly worse, but like basically the same thing. And so that's a good reason for us to think about, the types of strategies that we had before about playing back at somebody if they're playing really aggressively at us. Just remember that, put them on ace king and go all in. It's like the classic advice. I put them on ace, so I'm going to go all in. I don't put him on aces. Well, the truth is that it's hard to have aces. Just the same as like when someone who raises and represents a set post-flop. You can always kind of remember it's hard to have sets.
Yeah.
So I kind of missed the action on this bottom right table. So we raised pre and he called, and we bet the flop and he called. And the third card was a 10, and we checked, I'm assuming? Or did we bet? Yeah.
Let me go back.
Sure.
Okay. I raised under the gun, and in higher limits, do you need to tighten up your range under the gun than you would in like 25, 50 cents?
Regardless of limits, it's just the players is your table, and so in this sense, the answer is probably yes, because whenever you're coming to a new limit, someone that you're not comfortable with, chances are like, your skill level relative to theirs is not as good as it was before. And so, like, as in a general sense, yeah, you should tighten up everything when you move higher.
Okay.
I mean, if I was playing in the $5 million cash game, I would probably be a rock, because I would be playing against, like, all of the greatest players in the world, and I would be, like, probably not super excited to test my skill advantage against Ivy. And that's just the way it is. Now, if I went down and played, like, 100 no limit or something like that, I would probably be a total maniac because I know I would be in a million spots where I would know what to do and the other guy wouldn't, and so I would just be able to keep on pressing those advantages. So your question is should I fold something like King Jack under the gun? I mean, in a really tough game, yeah. But there are some games that are so soft that I would raise King Jack off under the gun happily full ring. Just basically like, oh my god, I have two cards that are playable, and there's like three terrible players at the table, And if it's much more likely when I raise under the gun that all the tight players are gonna play tight, and I'm just gonna basically just play another pot with a fish. And that's what I'm trying to do. So so we see bet three-way here, which I didn't exactly see. This actually, despite it being a really low ragged flop, still might be a spot where people see bet too often.
Okay.
My thought on that is people don't love to fold. This is interesting, actually. If you could pause it would be fine here. People love to play cards that hit these types of boards, and in that sense, like it's not a terrible thing to just give up multi-way. Heads up, I would definitely go ahead and play it. But this would actually be an interesting spot to think about doing a three barreling. Okay. And I'll tell you why. When someone hits this board, or check calls this board, they got one of. I guess it was just two-way. If someone check calls that board on like an 8-6 deuce board or whatever, their likely hands are usually some kind of shoe connector that paired, or some kind of like pocket pair that's like pocket sevens or something like that, right? We bet, he calls. That's not a very strong range, just absolute wise. The turn card is an overcard, which obviously inclines us to bet, but the problem is that it's sort of a connecting overcard, and that it might add a lot of extra straight draws and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he has, like, if he called with 9-10, or if he called with 8-9, or something like that, or 8-7, right? Or pocket sevens. However, I think we talked about this before, but I'm not positive. The best times to three barrel are times when our opponent has, like, some equity on the turn, but it all misses on the river. Like he calls with 9-10 on the turn, or with 8-9, hoping to pick up, his straight or trips or whatever, and then when he doesn't, he'll fold to further action. So those are actually the times that are supposedly superior, for when it comes time to think about three-barreling. So just off the top of my head, that would be like a pretty decent spot if I was going to fire 2, I'd fire 3. The only way that we get absolutely owned there is if he turns something really strong, like if he gets 8-10 and turns that, and then one step further than that, if he has a really strong hand on the turn and decides to check call down with it, or check call, check raise river or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time that we get crushed. But I wouldn't really think of most players at this limit to be thinking quite high enough on that level to really feel comfortable, not raising the turn.
Mm-hmm.
Many players there, if they have like a set or something like that, don't want to see their action get killed or don't want to see a beat card and will raise. And in that sense, they actually won't be terrible against maybe a less aggressive player to raise there. But given that we have basically no equity against those hands, actually no equity, it's would be correct for them to slow play, but most players just don't think we're that aggressive or don't feel comfortable taking the chance or whatever, and so they decide to check raise the turn, which lets us off the hook. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just an interesting thing to think about and to talk about with regards to when we might take a shot at a triple barrel.
Right.
All right. Let's see what happens later. Oh, I have a good new thing to talk about too. I was talking with a friend, my friend Kaylee, the other day about how we both felt like we have to party all the time, and how if she told me that she said something along the lines of, yeah, I mean, sometimes at night I just get FOMO, and I'm like, what is FOMO? She's like, FOMO is, you ever heard of that? Fear of missing out.
Oh yeah,
and I was
for sure.
Fear of missing out of the party, no, unbelievable. And then I realized that I get FOMO about poker games.
Oh yeah.
If there's a really good game playing, even if it's 5 in the morning and I haven't slept for 5 days, I get this FOMO that I'm gonna miss out on a good game, and I feel like I have to play all the time. So FOMO is my new favorite phrase. Don't get FOMO. The games will always exist. They'll always be around. Everyone's saying the games are going to die. No way. I was talking to some other people the other day, and eventually it comes out that I play poker or whatever, and one of the guys is like, oh, yeah, man, I'm pretty good at poker. I bet I could beat, online. And I'm like, I don't think you could. And he's like, no, I could. And I just thought to myself, the game will always be around.
Yeah.
This guy, regardless of how much money he might have, whether it's a lot and he wants to play high stakes or whether it's a little and he wants to play low stakes, doesn't really matter. That type of attitude will always be around because that's who people are. And so don't get FOMO about these games. They're not going to die. They're not going to go away forever. Even if they go away for a little bit, they'll come back. So here's an interesting question about whether or not we should raise the river. This guy's pretty short. So I think it's pretty clearly a raise, don't you?
Yeah. Are you okay?
I might be lagging behind you right now because of our current predicament.
Yeah.
In that case, I'm sorry, but so for me, I'll be seeing what happens with this flush hand while you guys are way ahead of it. I'm assuming that you raised.
Yeah, I did raise. Though I think I was playing a. I didn't really see how much of a stack he had. When I c-bet that flop, I mean, I don't really think that that's the best flop to c-bet. I mean, because I only have a run on the draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then on the turn, the top pair paired, and obviously if he's calling with a hand that he thinks is good on the flop, he's still gonna think it's good on the turn. But so I didn't want to bet have to fold my flush draw.
No, that's it. I thought the turn check was excellent. I mean, it's once again, we just do the simple pot equity, fold equity, and look at that guy, and look at the board.
Mm-hmm.
He's not folding. And then, and the other problem is, we talked a little bit before about something called a shove threshold, where somebody gets to a certain, lowness of sack, calling kind of gets removed from their repertoire, and if we have a hand that can't really be, that doesn't want to see a raise, that we can't be called, we can't bet. you know?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's like if you have a draw against someone who's like kind of passive on the turn, then it's not a bad spot to bet. But if you have a draw against someone who's super aggressive on the turn, it kind of is a bad spot to bet. And so, like against somebody who is super aggro, I think we talked about this in one of the earlier episodes. We bet, we bet polarize on the turn and fold to raises and stuff. But against a like more passive guy, we depolarize and we bet like stuff with equity.
Mm-hmm.
So against this guy, I think it was a great spot to check the turn. And then on the river, I didn't see how big you made it, but I would think that just a straight show would be the best.
Yeah. I just made it 35 and put him in.
Yeah, good.
And then I had a question. I don't know if you're caught up with the video, but I just paused it.
Probably not, but let's see what happens.
On the bottom left, D or P Dima or something raises under the gun, and I have ace king under the gun +1. Mm-hmm. And I re-raised, but would that be a spot where I could just call? Because, like, I'm obviously not really afraid to get squeezed, because then, I mean, that might even be good, because I could just...
Be great.
Yeah, reshove. And then, also because he raised under the gun, like, I don't know.
It's going to be super hard to get value.
Yeah.
You
like,
know, if you're three-betting a true under the gun raiser, under the gun +1, like, you know, it's going to be really hard for her to play with a worse hand. However, flatting gives you a lot of things. First of all, like just the same as calling with king jack, you know, in the big blind against a button raiser. Mm-hmm. Calling with ace king there keeps his range manipulation. It keeps his range in. You know, whatever he's playing, it's worse than yours, and so we get to keep his range in, which is good. But the other great benefit is, given how splashy the game was the last video we saw last week, it's a great thing for us to be able to induce squeezes. Mm-hmm. You know, this is like, you know, our dream situation is this guy races his ace queen under the gun, we flat, some dude squeezes with 10-7 suited, he decides this is definitely a squeeze, jams his ace queen, and we, you know, jam our ace king, and it's beautiful, and the situation actually happens more often than you might think. Mm-hmm. I mean, more often than that, you know, he's raising his king jack, he folds to the squeeze, we shove, the guy folds his 10-7 suited. You know, and it's like, oh, we just won, you know, 40 big blinds doing nothing or something like that. You know, and so I think that it's definitely superior. Now, on this type of board, I would make sure not to fold.
Okay. Why is that?
Really, I wouldn't fold. If I flatted ace king preflop, I wouldn't fold it on any board in position. I don't think.
Okay.
Just because equity-wise, you're too strong preflop relative to his range, even now. Imagine if you had pocket deuces, but instead of like that, you have another like 6 outs or another 4 outs. You know, you have 6 outs here. Not to mention the backdoor flush draw. So what I would do here, my only choice here facing a bet would be either to raise or to call. And on this type of board, I like raise because I can represent so many strong hands here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So many hands that aren't folding. And if I do get flatted, once again, I'm still drawing super live. And so I would be really inclined to be aggressive with, you know, 2 overcards on a wet board. You know?
Okay.
It's a good spot for us. So he checks and you bet, that's fine. There's a bajillion turn cards we can stay aggressive on, you know?
Yeah.
Which are, by the way, which turn cards might you stay aggressive on?
Like, besides obviously an ace or a king, a heart, a jack, a 10, and but what about, like, you know, like anything under that? Like, I think that
it would sort of, like, I would be inclined against normally. You know what I mean? Just because usually when people just expose the strength of their hand by taking a check call line, they do it without wanting to fold. You know what I mean? Like they do it basically saying, well, now that he knows what I have and he knows that it's not good, he's so or she's so likely to keep bluffing me. And people just don't love, once they get into check call mode, they don't love to fold unless like the board changes in some way. And on that queen turn, like, I don't think you're getting, if he check called you with 10s, or ace-7, I don't think he's folding. If he check called you with, it's reasonably possible he check called you with a hand like queen-10 or queen-10 suited or something like that. Again, like a pretty, he's certainly not going to fold something like that. And then also, if he was check calling something, there's a reason calling something worse than us, which is fine. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Check call something like ace-jack or something like that, which I've seen people do. It's really tough to know what he has because everyone takes a different sort of like approach to check calling in these spots.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think that if you don't bet the turn here, that's fine.
Okay.
Just get upset that you bricked out on 15 outs or more than that, like 20 outs on the turn, on the turn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're going for 6 aces or kings, 6 jacks or 10s, and another 8 hard outs. It's a lot of outs. And that's actually where like the variant of poker gets so subtle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if we draw to one of our 20 there or whatever, that's profitable for us. But like you never really view like pulling the queen of hearts as like a sick suck out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or they're pulling the queen of spades there. Like you never think about like, oh, I pulled the deuce of hearts. I'm running so good. Like
yeah.
You don't think about it like that. And so that's actually kind of funny that he does show up with ace-jack there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reasonable chance that he's got a worse hand than us. And in that case, like, he doesn't have enough equity to warrant and he doesn't, we can't get value, so checking's fine. And once again, a totally good spot to squeeze with ace-10 and all that stuff. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
the
reason why I was pausing is because, I guess in like 50 cent or dollar and when I played a little bit of 1-2, like I started getting more wary of my squeeze spots and like what hands I would be squeezing with, because when we talked about re-raising and 3-betting and squeezing in 25, 50 cent, it was almost always like, let's do it for value, and we can do it with mm-hmm. big cards and suited cards and stuff like that. But like against like better players who would flat in position to a raise and then would like flat my 3-bet.
Mm-hmm.
How do I kind of like need to change my range for like better players or people like that?
Put it this way. If people are likely to flat your squeezes with wide ranges, mm-hmm. it's the same principle as before.
Just
the big stuff is
yeah.
good. Yeah, depolarize, exactly. If people are likely to slow play their big hands and flat with good stuff, right? Like we did with our ace-king.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In that event, we're actually much better off squeezing with random junk
mm-hmm.
and not c-betting when called. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there's not that many strong hands that someone can have. So if they're not calling with anything but strong hands, they're folding a ton. And if they're folding a ton, that means we should be pressing our advantage with all kinds of weak stuff, bluffing them essentially. Mm-hmm. As soon as they start changing from folding a ton to calling a ton, you start changing from bluffing a ton to value betting.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, against a great player, it's really difficult to know because they'll do it all. They'll do, sometimes they'll flat, they'll slow play and flat big stuff, and other times they'll flat something, kind of weaker because they know that you think that they are flatting only strong stuff, so they're going to stop c-betting, so you can just steal the pot. You know what I'm saying? So, like, let's say that I was playing against someone who I thought only flatted my 3-bets with strong hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I squeeze with, 10-7 suited. Okay? And he flats. The board comes down, king, queen, 4. Right? I'm check folding.
Yeah.
Because that smashes what I think his range for calling pre-flop was. And so, like, a good player then might flat with a hand like, ace-5 suited, and then, expect me to check fold that board.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that case, he'd be outplaying me. But then the problem then is if I start 3-betting him with ace 10, and the board is ace 6-9, I'm going to stack him. You know what I mean? It's like he's never going to, well, I would stack him anyway, but I guess a better example would be like if the board came down like 10-7-3 with a flush draw, I'm going to stack him. Or if the board came down 10-5-7, I'm going to get like 2 shoots of value from him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, so then, okay, so a player, okay, so there's a raise in the cut, or in the cutoff and a call on the button. If I know that the caller on the button is somebody who 3-bets a lot, then does that mean I'd be more like? I think that would mean I would be more likely to squeeze with hands like 10-7 suited, because if he's 3-betting, a ton, then he's 3-betting like a lot of his strong hands then, and just 3-betting in position too, so that like if I don't know, I think that I'm sorry, I'm trying to like make it make sense in my head and try and articulate it, but it's not coming out right.
I think that you're actually on, it's the other way around.
Okay.
I think that like if somebody like 3-bets all their strong hands, or like 3-bets a lot in position, 3-bets like all their strong stuff, especially if you see someone 3-betting a hand like King Jack or King Queen or something like that in position.
Okay, yeah.
Then you should be really inclined to squeeze with like ace 10 and stuff, because you have a better hand than them, and the only question would be whether or not they'd call you, but most likely, it's, if you're going to squeeze with stuff that, you can get getting value from. By that sense, you should probably squeeze with everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should
probably squeeze with good stuff and bad stuff, because, and basically change it up depending on whether or not he calls you, but the truth being that, he doesn't have a strong hand. Now, hopefully, we want to be a little bit less readable than that.
Yeah.
By being able to say, well, we could flat weak hands, we could flat strong hands there, we could have anything anytime, which is sort of the eventual goal to at least represent when we're playing against better players. But if we know someone has a weak hand, we should 3-bet everything.
Yeah.
Why not? Unless we're closing the action and we have a strong hand.
Yeah.
If it's just me and him, and I've got a strong hand, and I know he's going to fold his weak hand if I re-raise, then we call. And this is actually something that you see a lot in heads up. Heads up 3-betting is such an important factor that when you're playing heads up and somebody is folding to all of your 3-bets, you don't 3-bet ace queen. You just lose a ton of value because he just folds his 10-5 offsuit. But if he's calling you, you do it for sure, obviously. If he's 4-betting you, do it for sure, obviously. But if he's not calling or 4-betting, like you 4-bet him or you 3-bet him with, random cards, and you call with big hands, because that's much better value. Mm-hmm. Hopefully all that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it did. It made sense in my head, and then I got it mixed up when I was trying to explain it, but, like,
what you said was, well, that's kind of funny. You're like, well, if I know he has a weak hand, like, I should want to 3-bet, like, junky hands because I'll just get free money. And
no. Yeah.
It's like, but also, I guess I could 3-bet, like, big hands because those are better than his. Like, oh, yeah, that's true also. Poker's really easy when you know the other guy doesn't have a good hand.
No, I swear it made sense in my head. It just totally came out wrong. And when I said I spazzed out, is because, like, I'm in Paris, and I stayed up till like 3 hours ago. So then I fell asleep for 3 hours and woke so that we could be on the same time or meet up, like, because I know if people don't know, we had to like pick a time and just go with it because we both don't have internet just
effort
really available.
Effort one took place like when I was in Chiang Mai, and she was in where were you before Paris?
Oh,
you were somewhere
I was
else.
in Monaco.
Yeah, she was in Monaco, and I was in like North Thailand, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm in China, and then she's in Paris. Like, well, seriously, what's going on?
Yeah, but
But so no, I don't think you're too spazzy. I see where you're coming from.
What was I gonna say? I had a question. So when people are are 3-betting more, like I've seen obviously in 50 Cent, $1 and 1-2, and I'm like raising in position with a pair, and we just talked about flatting 3-bets or defending 3-bets or whatever, with big cards and stuff. And I'm sure we do the same process with pairs, you know, like if they're 3-betting, like suited connectors or stuff. But what else also goes into like knowing when you should flat with pairs and then when you should like repop
or fold
yeah.
The first thing that I would look at for sure is my odds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is like should be standard practice. If someone makes it really small, then we're never folding. If someone makes it huge, then we are probably folding. If somebody is super deep, we're never folding. You know, it's just like the odds you're getting on spiking a set are critical. Then the next thing I would do is I would think about really what type of range does this guy have.
Mm-hmm.
If he has a polarized range, flatting is worse.
Okay.
Let me make sure that I got that right. The reason why I think it's worse, and I could be wrong, and I would love for this to turn into a discussion because this is a good question. The reason why I think it's worse is because actually, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's about equally good / bad to flat with small pairs in position, or to flat with any pair in position, regardless of whether someone's range is good or bad. And the reason why I'm going to say is this, and please feel free to disagree. If somebody has a polarized range that's including like basically really strong stuff and stuff with equity, like suited connectors like that, they're going to be able to double barrel with. Our plan should be to try to flop sets and just to flat because they'll bluff it off.
Okay.
Right. If somebody's range is consisting of big cards and then super strong stuff, like a depolarized range, flopping a set's good because it lets our opponent value bet and value bet thinly against us, which means we should just flat it all off. Okay? So our plan should actually look the same against both of them. But I think that it's one of those, it's a really tricky spot at 100 big blinds. Is it profitable? Is it not profitable? I would bet that it's like the more aggressive your opponent is, the more profitable it is to flat. The less aggressive, the less profitable it is.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because like being a set and having someone get away is a disaster. And so, what I recommend you to do with no pairs, 100 big blinds deep, right now, probably fold.
Okay.
People's ranges are probably a little too strong. Our decisions are probably a little bit too uncertain. Probably just folding them for now is best. You get a little deeper, then you start flatting them every time. You know what I mean? The only time I would ever think about betting a hand like that would be if I thought the guy was like shoving any two cards. I think that 4-betting a hand like pocket sevens in position in a 6-max game is a total huge mistake.
Okay.
In position. Unless we think he's shoving like ace-5 and pocket deuces. Pocket deuces, now some players actually that's like, that actually happens, but in general, I would say flat or fold is probably our best two options by far.
Okay. Gotcha. And what about out of position when you get 3-bet and then you're either 4-bet calling or just folding, right?
Out of position when I get 3-bet, yeah, I'm either 4-bet calling or I'm folding.
Okay. All right.
And you could theoretically say like there could be an example of a time where you might 4-bet fold, but it's such a strange amalgamation of circumstances that like it wouldn't really ever make sense to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be a situation where it's like oh, he's through me with a wide range, but when he 5-bets, he only has pocket pairs and never ace-king. So in this case, 4-betting would be a good place, but then, I would fold to a shove. But that actually never happens, so you don't need to worry about it.
Well, okay. I guess I'll have to look back through my hand history, but when I played 1-2 a little bit ago, like 4 hours ago, I think a situation like that came up, and I put this in my blog, but I hope that I can salvage it. I don't know. Anyway, I'll talk to you about that later. But anyway, are you caught up with where I paused the tape?
I think so. You're on king queen, you got your pair, and then top right table you 3-bet, and you got flatted from the blinds, and now you're almost certainly going to c-bet this board, I think. You should, at least. It's just so dry that it's really hard. If he doesn't have a big pair, it's really hard for him to continue.
Yeah.
And I'm not set that this guy's a good player yet, so I would probably just bet like $11 and see what happens.
Okay. Well, also, the thing is that against, like, Lucky Luck Box on the bottom left, and then against Food Fight, or Food Fish something, the person that I 3-bet with 10-8.
Yeah, I see him, yeah.
They're both people that I kind of thought looked like, well, actually I didn't really know about Food for Africa, but he did one thing, I think, earlier or played one hand that looked like he might be just decent, so I thought that I might as well just polarize, and I thought 10-8 by 3-betting would be a good hand to do it with. Is that okay?
10-8 would be, like, at the very, very top of hands that, like, I would 3-bet here, and at towards the bottom of hands that I would like to flat with.
Okay.
Like, if it was any worse, if it was 10-6 suited, then 3-betting is clearly better. If it was 10-9 suited or Jack-10 suited, then calling is probably better.
Okay.
I would still probably be more inclined to flat here, especially if I thought there was somebody behind me who was bad.
Okay.
Like, I don't know who the big blind was in this case, but if he wasn't a good player, then this might be a good spot for us to go ahead and flat. This is another reason why I don't like stats, because you look at this table around, you say, oh, everyone's red, and they're all, tight players and stuff like that. But you don't have more than, like, 30 or 75 hands on the most, on one guy.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's really tough to know who's not, you got to assume that probably one of those guys isn't good. So if there is a guy that's not good behind you, then you want to end up flatting.
Okay.
And so in that event, like, I think I would be more inclined to flat than 3-bet, but it's probably not a big deal either way.
Okay, and then like along the same lines, like that's why I just called with King Queen on the bottom left instead of 3-betting that hand.
Oh, this guy's playing never mind. Yeah, he's playing multi-table, so he looks like a decent player, so flatting looks like probably a better option.
And, okay, wait.
And the action on this was you checked, and he checked back flop, right?
Yeah.
Turn card came. Obviously, it's a good spot for us to value bet. Not a great spot for us to check raise because it's a little bit over representing our hand. It's going to be hard to get value. Plus, a lot of his hands will want to just check back. You know, Ace-7, 8-7, stuff like that. And then the river card comes, obviously, so we bet he calls. And the river card comes, I think, a pretty clear spot for us to just, throw out another value bet, right?
Yeah.
Seems fine.
Yeah, so on the top, I didn't bet the flop like you said I should.
Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties as expected. But what I was going to say was it's totally okay to check behind on that sort of like, random ragged board when we 4-bet or some, we put in a bunch of money pre and somebody calls us in a spot where we only think they're calling with a hand they're not going to fold, Now, it's usually not a bad idea to test out that theory and, like, the first time you see it, make a note on someone if they flat you in an odd spot and make a c-bet and see what they do. You know what I mean? Because somebody who folds there is probably just like a bad player or like a weak player who's making a mistake. Mm-hmm. Somebody who doesn't fold there is probably like a decent player who's actually playing probably pretty well against you. And so what I would do is I would make a note on a player regardless of what they did. Just describing the situation and what happened. But this is a situation that happens a lot as well when we're 3-betting, and it's kind of the thing whereas before. When we are 3-betting a ton of stuff against a bad player, we're c-betting all the time because we expect them to just fold. When we're 3-betting against a player who's like plays tightly to our 3-bets, like bring us back to this old the old king jack on the in the big blind against a button raise. We don't 3-bet because we think he's going to play really tightly. So we 3-bet hands like 10-5 suited and stuff like that against him. If we 3-bet the 10-5 suited and he flats us, we are not c-betting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? we're at least very, very, very sharply reducing our rate of c-betting.
Yeah.
Because he's not playing tightly with the intention of flatting and then folding. You know, he's playing tightly with the intention of flatting and then not folding. So essentially, against loose players, we c-bet a lot. Against players who are loose pre-flop, we c-bet a lot. Against tight pre-flop, we don't c-bet a lot post-flop, and that should be obvious. But that said, I think we're actually going to wrap up this video a little bit short. Sorry about that, but the technical situation is a little bit more difficult than normal. Hopefully you guys will bring some good questions to the thread. We'll get a good discussion going. And next week we will be doing what sounds to be like a potentially disastrous 1-2 session.
Yeah.
And, to clarify one thing, by the way, these are this is not Kristy's not actually moving up these limits as like her main games. We structure this to move up limits as we go, so that we can see some more challenging situations.
Yeah.
That said, Kristy's skill level is certainly improving, and so it wouldn't surprise me to see you playing like 50 Cent $1 as your main game very shortly. Although not if 1-2 has anything to say about it.
Yeah, no, but, like 50 Cent, I'm just about there, and 50 Cent $1, I'm just about there, and I feel comfortable playing it. But like playing 1-2 was like it was totally different, and I was intimidated, I'll admit, and yeah, I wasn't really sure.
Okay, we'll see it all. We'll see it all next week, and hopefully we'll be technology will be a little bit better, but I think that's all for now. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. For DeucesCracked.com, this has been Andrew BalugaWhale Seidman and
Kristy the Ninja Dolphin. I'm not feeling like a Ninja Dolphin right now, but it's okay.
You are the Ninja Dolphin. You're also exhausted, and you're in Paris. Go have a croissant. Go have a croissant and a baguette, and we'll all be jealous. I'm going to go have some dim sum. It's my favorite food, and I'm in China. So,
all right.
You guys have a good one, and catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah.